In this section, we will discuss the types and characteristics of residential mortgage loans that are typically securitized. Let's start with a definition from the curriculum. A mortgage loan is a loan secured by the collateral of some specified real estate property which obligates the borrower to make a predetermined series of payments to the lender. The cash flow of a mortgage includes interest, scheduled principal payments, and prepayments. The ratio of the property's purchase price to the amount of the mortgage is called the loan to value ratio. Let us understand this through a very simple example. Let's say that Mr. and Mrs. Smith want to buy a house. The total cost of this house, or the value of this house, is 150 million, of which Mr. and Mrs. Smith already have 50 million, so they need to borrow 100 million. So they can go to a bank and take out a mortgage. They will borrow 100 million from the bank. So this is the bank. The bank lends 100 million to Mr. and Mrs. Smith so they can buy this house. The bank will then show a mortgage asset. So the bank has lent 100 million. 100 million shows up as an asset, a mortgage asset or a mortgage loan on the books of the bank. Typically in the United States, mortgage loans such as this have a maturity of 30 years, which means that Mr. and Mrs. Smith can pay off this 100 million over a 30-year period. Now, interest rate determination, what does that mean? So Mr. and Mrs. Smith have borrowed 100 million. What is the rate that they can pay? Different countries have different mechanisms of establishing the interest rates, and even within a country such as the United States, there are different options. One option might be that Mr. and Mrs. Smith pay a fixed rate of 5% or whatever the appropriate rate is at the time. This is one scenario. Another scenario is referred to as an adjustable rate, and the term used in the United States is ARM, or adjustable rate mortgage. What this means is that at particular reset dates, the rate is adjusted based on a reference rate or an index. So very roughly speaking, this is like a floating rate bond where the payments or the interest rate vary based on a reference rate or another index. And then we can have other categories such as initial period fixed rate, where the rate is fixed for a certain period, then it becomes, or we can have some combinations of these two, where we have an initial period where the rate is fixed and after that the rate is adjustable. There is also the possibility of having a convertible rate where the mortgage is initially a fixed rate or an adjustable rate, and at some point the borrower has the option to convert into the other category. So if it was initially fixed, to convert to adjustable. If it was initially adjustable, then the borrower might have the option to convert to fixed. So those are the different interest rate structures. Obviously, whatever the structure is needs to be defined upfront. Next we come to amortization schedule, and this connects with what we have seen in quantitative methods. Next we come to the amortization schedule. In most countries, residential mortgage loans are fully amortizing loans, which means that the borrower pays an equal amount every month in order to pay off the loan. Now let's go back to the $100,000 loan that we talked about. Let's say that this is based on a fixed interest rate of 6% per month. Typically payments are made every month. So if this is a 30-year mortgage, and we have 12 months per year. So the total number of periods is 30 times 12, which is 360. The interest rate per month is 6% over 12, which is 0.5%. The value of the loan is 100,000. So in the calculator, we can plug in a PV of 100,000. Future value is 0 because this is fully amortizing, so nothing additional needs to be paid at the end. We plug these numbers into the calculator and compute the payment amount. The calculator will say minus because this is opposite of the present value. So what this says is that the homeowner or the borrower needs to pay 599.55 every month for 30 months, and at the end of 30 months the loan will be paid off. Now this payment consists of both principal and interest. The interest amount is the rate, which is 0.5% per month, into the principal outstanding at the start of the month. So that would be 500, and this means that if a payment of 599.95 is made, of that 500 is interest and 99.55 reduces the principal amount. I hope this looks familiar because we have seen this in other parts of the curriculum. In the second month, we will start with the lower principal. The payment will be the same, but the split between interest and principal repayment will be a little different. If we create the full amortization schedule over 360 months, then the principal outstanding at the end of the last month will be down to 0. Prepayments and prepayment penalties. Prepayments means that homeowners make payments beyond the scheduled amount. So let us say that after 10 months interest rates fall, and what the homeowner does is refinances the loan. The homeowner will then make a prepayment and close out this loan. That's one scenario. Another scenario is where instead of paying 599 in a given month, a homeowner makes a payment of 1000. So notice that this payment of 1000 has three parts. In here is the interest payment, there is a scheduled principal payment, and then everything beyond 599.55, let's just round this off to 600, then 400 would classify as a prepayment. Prepayment penalties. In some countries, there might be penalties for making a prepayment because in a sense this hurts the lender. So the exact penalty can vary from loan to loan or country to country. Those penalties will be defined in the mortgage contract. Rights of the lender in a foreclosure and recourse and non-recourse mortgage loans. These points are important. So let's understand this concept of foreclosure. As we discussed earlier, it is the bank that has lent money and Mr. and Mrs. Smith have borrowed money. What if Mr. and Mrs. Smith cannot make their scheduled payments? In other words, the homeowners default. Then what the bank can do is take ownership of the house, and then the house is referred to as a foreclosed property. The bank can then sell the house and use the proceeds to essentially pay off the loan. So that's what we mean when we say that the collateral is the real estate property. And foreclosure is the process whereby the bank takes over the house, sells the house, and obviously keeps the money that they get from selling the house. Recourse versus non-recourse mortgage loans. Most mortgage loans are non-recourse. What that means is that the bank can sell the house and keep the money from that sale, but the bank cannot go after any other assets that Mr. and Mrs. Smith might have. So if Mr. and Mrs. Smith have an expensive car, the bank cannot go after that other property or the other bank accounts that the homeowners might have. In a recourse loan, the bank can go after the other assets of the borrowers.